Hello, my name is Christian Belter and I'm the composer for Now Let Me Tell You Something. This project was really fun to work on. I had never programmed jazz before, despite being a jazz musician myself, but it turned out great. Now, if you haven't seen the film, go watch it first and then come back here. There'll be a link in the description to the original film you can watch. Go watch it first, then come back here. Since Libby and the rest of the crew made a behind-the-scenes video, I figured I would join the club, as it were, and make a behind-the-score video, I guess, demonstrating how I went about scoring the film. Quick disclaimer, I do get a little bit technical in this video. I try to explain the concepts as I go along, but if some things fly over your head, I apologize. Now onto the score. Hope you enjoy. So the inspiration for this score was Ascenseur pour l'échafaud, which is a French detective crime drama from the 1950s, scored by Miles Davis, of all people, as well as the main theme, particularly the saxophone part, because we got a sax here, from Taxi Driver, scored by the late, great Bernard Herrmann. So there are three ideas that make up the bulk of this score. You've got the minor major 9 chord, also known as the James Bond chord. You've got the trading twos, and you've got the progression from the French film I mentioned, Ascenseur pour l'échafaud. I'll explain what all of those are as I get to them, but those are the three main ideas. The first one you actually hear right off the bat. It's the second thing you hear in the film. So the first thing you hear is this.
Where are you, Penny Price?
Right? The second thing you hear is this. And that is... Where's my piano? That's just the James Bond chord, essentially. If you think about, for instance, the very end of No Time to Die, for instance. Right? Same idea. Now, this could have been... It's the same idea, except I just have it in a different key. And that's the first thing you hear, musically. Which appears in many places. Where else is it? I think it's... appears here. And again. And again. That's the same chord 3 times, by the way. So it's... So we're in F, and then D, and then F sharp. That's all it is. But it's the same. It's the same shape. It's the same shape 3 separate times. And that comes up. That comes up again. Comes up again later. I think at the very end is when it comes up again. Yeah, this time with saxophone and everything else, which I'll get into. So yeah, that's basically the first idea. The second idea is the trading. So in jazz, the concept of trading takes place typically almost all the time, during a solo, or during the solos rather. And it's when a player will solo for instance, 4 bars, and then the drums will solo for 4, and then maybe the bass will solo for 4, then the drums will solo for 4, then a sax player might solo for 4, then the drums for 4. So they're trading with the drums. They're each trading four, in this case 4 bars, with the drums. Now, usually if there is trading, it'd be trading 4. Sometimes you can trade 8 bars, sometimes you might see 2 bars. Usually it's 4. In this case I've done 2 because 4 felt overkill for how relatively slow the music is. Here. So we've got 2 bars of just swinging. Then here you've got 2 bars with the trumpet. And then drum solo. Trumpet again, 2 bars. Drum solo for 2 bars. And then that goes on for one more time, but I put the guitar instead of the trumpet just to be different. And that comes up around here as well, if I can pull up the video.
Like Angus are the golden goose of PIs. They got
See, 2 bars, trumpet, and now 2 bars of drum solo.
Mouths. So Shelton is the guy I want to talk to, huh?
Trumpet solo.
Shelton. Never heard that name before.
Drum
In these
solo.
types of mysteries, this is where I'd suspect him of being the secret lover. But what are the chances of that? I'm all a
Same
woman could
idea,
ever
except I
ask for.
think
Smart.
it kind of stops
handsome,
here. Yeah, there's no drum
strong,
solo here.
Smart.
I'm gonna get back to that part actually, because there's a really, I love that bit. And then the last idea is what I call the ascenseur progression, or it's the progression from that French film. A lot of people call it the James Bond progression, but I call it the ascenseur progression because that French film came before James Bond and did the same sort of thing. And what I'm referring to is just it's just that sort of idea. Here we go. Yeah, right here. So notice the bass. It's just holding the same note. And then it goes on to other things. A few other chords here. And then it goes back to the same thing. Oh, okay, that's the drum fill. And it also comes back right around here. Same idea. So those are the 3 sort of primary ideas. So now I'm just going to kind of go through my mindset, just in general. So yes, we start off with this. And I've muted the audio because it's just going to interfere, because I'm speaking and there's music. I don't need that there too. So the goal here was to make something that's kind of sweet. So yeah, the goal here was to make something kind of sweet. Because it's supposed to be sort of this story of how this couple met. Now, of course, we know that the film's kind of ridiculous if you've seen it, which you should go see it if you haven't. But it's a bit ridiculous, but we don't really know that yet. Right? We've just been introduced to this guy who wants to know where this girl is. And that's all we know. So for all we know, this is completely wholesome and not weird at all. Which is what the music is designed to reflect. They come in, and now we get a sense that it's a bit more odd. But for him, it's completely serious, right? That's the thing with this music. That's the thing. For him, this whole thing is very serious. Right? This whole thing is not, it's not it's not ridiculous at all. For us it is, but for him it's not. So that's what I wanted to reflect, was him, right? Not necessarily the absurdity of the situation. I'm gonna keep going a little bit. I mean, I could get into the minutia of the chord progression, but I don't think I'm really gonna bother. The chords are inspired by My Funny Valentine, largely. At least this part and some of the other, like, basically this part is inspired by My Funny Valentine. That's the chords of it. That's all you really need to know. Because I thought it suited it well. It felt appropriate. So this part, I actually want to bring in the audio for this.
From that moment on, it was all going perfect.
So that was very intentional. So it's so if I play that, it sounds done, right? It sounds the thing has ended, whatever it is. It's done. It's done. That's it. There's nowhere else you can go, which is 2, 5, 1, which is the most basic thing in the world to just close out a section. That's how it feels, musically speaking. That's how it feels. And this was very intentional, because he's sort of telling the story, and then what does he say?
From that moment on, it was all going perfect.
It's all going perfect. It's all done. That's it. We're done. It's all perfect.
Till about a month ago.
Hold on. Till about a month ago. I just smacked the microphone. It's all going perfect. It's all done. Till about a month ago. So, in other words, it's all done, but it's actually not. Right? So all you need to do is take this top note, bring it down, and that does not sound done at all. It sounds very sort of ominous. Like it's just not quite, there's something off there. This, it sounds kind of dark and a bit sad, but it's done. But this. So I'm actually quite proud of that. That's very intentionally done.
From that moment on, it was all going perfect. Till about a month ago.
And then
Window was open like always.
She was
missing.
And then all of a sudden just mystery and all that. So yeah, that was the idea there. This whole beginning section, basically, all the way until it starts swinging. Until it starts swinging right about here. This whole beginning section, I basically wrote the bulk of it at the piano. So I wasn't actually at the computer. I basically sat down in front of the piano with the iPad, with the film and paper, and wrote it. I mean, I didn't write the sax part. That I came up with at the computer. I wrote the fundamentals of it completely at the piano, which I'm very proud of. That's not normally how I go about it, just because it seems so unintuitive, but I guess because it's a jazz score, then it turned out pretty good. Now we're on to the swinging section. So the goal with the swinging was just because we had gone past the sort of sweet, sentimental part, and now we're kind of on to business. Right now he's trying to tell us, okay, now let me tell you something. Right now we're on to something, which is why it sort of picks up. The tempo stays the same, I think. Yes, it stays the same. It's just I upped the feel of it, so I made it feel more upbeat and alive, even though it's the tempo itself. is staying the same. Now, why did I... Now, this is where the trading comes in that I was talking about. We've got the trumpet. And then the drums. Why trading? I don't know. I don't really know. I think in the moment I felt that if trading, one would be a way to keep it interesting rather than just swinging and playing and just keeping it stagnant. I felt trading would make it kind of cool, would keep the interest. I also thought it would sound kind of silly to have it trade. Again, I don't know why. Trading is a very normal thing in jazz. It doesn't make it sound weird. If you go to a jam session, for instance, and you start trading, it's going to be very normal. But for some reason here, it just feels a bit weird. And now it continues on, and I had the guitar take a stab. And now here, I just sort of felt like with the, again, I'm with the photos here and with the way he's sort of giving out a roll call.
Best of the best. Sam Spade, Sherlock Holmes, Dale Cooper, Philip Marlowe.
With the roll call, it sort of feels like, because those are all like who did he say? Sherlock Holmes, Philip Marlowe, Dale Cooper. These are all characters that are old. These are all very old characters that have been around for a long time. Like Dale Cooper's from 1989. It's from Twin Peaks, so it's from 1989. Philip Marlowe is from before then. Sherlock Holmes, I mean, it's from ages ago, like 100 years ago. And so, and the way the photos were laid out and everything, it just felt like kind of an homage. And so I just sort of decided to give some funeral brass. I mean, brass, it's just 3 trumpets. But that was my philosophy there.
Best of the best. Sam Spade, Sherlock Holmes, Dale Cooper, Philip Marlowe. After a month, I think I'm ready to finally get to the bottom of this. My name is Peter Lee.
Yeah.
And I'm the guy who's going to find out what happened to Penny Price. First stop, coworker.
It turned out well. I mean, it wasn't my plan to make it sound like a, you know, like a funeral, but it turned out that way. A military funeral. And then it turns out somewhat triumphant as he says, you know, he's going to do this thing.
Really get to the bottom of this. My name.
And I really tried, especially with these hits. Or, you know, and then the... You know, with those, I really tried to imagine, and this is the benefit of being a jazz pianist who's played in bands before, in sort of combos, what we call combos and bands, where I'm really trying to think of the band when writing this. I'm not just thinking about what can the software do, because the software could do things that no human could do. But if you make it do things that no human could do, odds are it's not going to sound very human, right?
My name is Peter Lee,
so I'm thinking,
and I'm the guy who's going to find out what happened to Penny Price. First stop.
Right, that was my idea. I'm trying to visualize the drummer, trying to visualize the piano player, which is very easy. Trying to visualize the bassist, trying to visualize the trumpets and the guitar, trying to make it real. And that's the case for it when you're programming any genre, by the way. I just think it's especially useful for jazz because of how idiosyncratic jazz is as a genre.
Penny Price. First stop, coworker.
Yeah, that part I had to fiddle with a few times. Because of the different cuts I got. That's the wrong button. Yeah, and then it just goes into the James Bond section, which ends basically right here. Yeah, just basically just create a vibe here. The point wasn't do anything special here. It was just to create a vibe. Oh, that was actually an accident. That was an accident. I didn't mean that as a pun. I just said create a vibe, and then I just clicked to the Vibraphone there. And then I thought about putting stuff here. Not here, when they sit down. Yeah, like here. But I figured we just had an entire section of music. You know, give it a break, basically. Put a break into the score, and then come back when it cuts back out to the Rockin' Johnnies. There you go. This part. Okay, this part I thought was hilarious. I thought it was so funny. I'll just let it run.
Woman could ever ask for. Smart, handsome, strong, smart, loving, caring, and I'm really fucking smart.
I thought that was hilarious when that lined up that way. So the thing here being that it hits when he says smart, because he says that he's like, I don't know, smart something else, and then really, really smart. And so I love how he's hammering home the fact that he's smart, and I also
being the secret lover.
Literally hit it home that he's smart.
Smart, handsome, strong, smart, loving, caring, and I'm really fucking smart.
It's like even the music's trying to let everybody know, hey, this guy's smart. And the reason I find it so funny, one, because it's just so it just reinforces how ridiculous this guy is. This is a case where it reinforces how ridiculous he is. But also, it was a complete fluke that this lined up the way it did. I had scored this part. I had essentially written all this for one of the previous cuts, because I was sent about, I think, 3 different cuts or something. 3 or 4 different cuts. And this was the last one that I was sent. And this whole section, that wasn't in there. And so, because I had basically scored this ending bit for when, I want to say, for when it kind of cuts to black like this in the other cut, that hit lined up there, I want to say. But then I was sent a new cut. And so what I did was, and this is why it's kind of weird here, there's a 6/4 and there's some tempo changes there if you can barely see them. That whole point was to basically line this up so that it lined up with the cut.
Now let me tell you something.
Basically, so it lined up with that hit of the drums, of the bass drum, or the kick drum rather, would line up. And so I moved the music so it would line up there. Right? But this was music that I had written for the old cut. So it wouldn't fit with this new one. Right? At least in principle. But I did what I always do with new cuts like this, and I just lined it up, and then I just played it to see what would happen. And it lined up
strong, smart,
perfectly,
loving, caring, and I'm really fucking smart.
On that. It lined up perfectly on that. I thought that was hilarious. I thought that was so good. And that's why I was begging that they wouldn't change the cut to where that would not be the case anymore, because I loved that. So and they didn't. It didn't. So good on them for not doing that. And then I just added this afterwards. Again, the point really just to create a vibe. You know, because again, for him this is serious. He's driving onto grass. That's ridiculous. But for him this is serious. You know, he's going into unknown territory, this unknown guy. Now that's basically the bulk of the score. The rest, there's just a few little snippets I'll go over real quick for fun. The next one is basically just to highlight the color shift, because at this point the film had been entirely in black and white, but then it switches to color. And so she asked if I could make this sort of jingle type thing, which I did. You know, just something like that. And all that is just, I think that's what it is. No, it's not that. Yeah, it's just that. Which, if you care about what the music theory is, this is a an E7 add 9 flat 5, or E7 flat 5 add 9, however you want to say it. If you care about the music theory at all, if that went completely over your head, it doesn't matter, it's not relevant. So yeah, I did that. Then it continues on. Again, there was really no intention of putting any music here, and I think we were right not to let the story speak for itself a little bit. I also want to highlight the best part of the entire film, which is the freaking purse in the oven. Why is the purse in the oven? Oh my gosh, that's so... And also, why does she have stuffed animals? She's like 22. Anyway, whatever. I'm sorry if you're younger than 22, by the way. Here the point, again, was just to create a vibe, just to make it... give it sort of like a Pink Panther type of feel, make it kind of sneaky. Thing is, with the bass line and the drums, it sounds sneaky. If I just... Right? Just the bass and drums, it sounds kind of sneaky. But if I add the piano in, it goes from sneaky to stupid. Because the piano playing, it sounds very uncertain of itself. The piano player sounds kind of nervous. It's because if you look at the grid, you'll notice that it's like really uneven. Like they're just not lined up. They're also not in the grids either, if you can see the lines. They're pretty small to see, but they're not lined up. Like, it's just, the whole idea here is just to make it sound kind of, like, off, you know? Again, the whole point is to create a vibe. I was very tempted, also, I know I keep stopping it, I was very tempted to not include drums on this, so it would have sounded like this. I was very close to just having it be this. Right, I was very close to that, but I figured, you know, it doesn't sound worse with the drums, and the rest of the score included drums as well. Basically everywhere, except for a brief part here. The purple is the drums. So except for a brief part here, it basically has drums all over it. So I figured for the sake of continuity, that's really the only reason. And it turned out well, because I had these little hits, which I thought was a bit... Those little moments I thought were kind of funny. Well, then it ends, and the chords are mainly just based on whole tones, because it sounds funny.
You really gotta lock your windows.
I prefer that voice clip, by the way, to the one that was used in the film, sorry.
You really gotta lock your windows.
Get out of here, you creep!
Okay, anyway. That's a bit offensive. I'm just making a video. Alright. Now for the last one, the big one. This is, again, just the James Bond chord, basically. I'm going to mute the video, or mute the audio from the video. This is, again, just the James Bond chord from before. It's just... I think it might even be those exact same chords again. No, okay, not quite. So I went actually more properly James Bond. I went... There you go. Yeah, that's basically what I did. So it's almost the exact same chords in terms of the keys, but the chords as the shapes are the same. It's not anything particularly revolutionary. I essentially just copy-pasted and then transposed it. But I obviously added a lot more stuff, which I will get into if I just... So of course what you're going to notice is especially different about that one is the synths, right? If I isolate the synth, it's the what give it the alien quality is, well, they're the synths and also the electric piano that I added. And that's what creates the sort of alien sound. So for instance, this synth right here, right? So so here's the thing. Libby suggested a theremin, which would have been perfect. The thing about a theremin is it's theremin software, as in getting like a theremin, a piece of theremin software rather than an actual theremin. They don't sound great. At least they sound okay, but the theremin quality is really difficult to transmit through the software. Whereas if you're using it manually with your hands, like an actual theremin, it's like an L shape, and then you just play it with your hands, kind of. That's much easier to create the theremin sound in terms of like the bends and that, whereas the software often isn't great. And the software that I could find, I can't even support it on my machine. It doesn't even work. So I did a workaround, which is what I took a synth that I already had, and then I just mapped the tuning of it to one of the faders that I have, if you can see it, one of this thing. I just mapped it to one of those. So basically I could just play it and then go like this and mess with the tuning on the fly, which is how I created that alien sound. I'm knocking everything over, which I've done before for a horror film. And of course the point here being that she's been abducted by aliens.
Abducted, taken by extraterrestrials and experimented on.
Taken by extraterrestrials and experimented on. Yeah, well that's the whole point of this, right? It kind of felt naked just having the theremin appear out of nowhere, so I wanted some support. I had tried a few things, but I just couldn't come up with anything that worked, so I just said, you know what? Quarter notes. Just quarter notes. I'm just going to make it really simple. I'm not going to, pas compliquer la vie. I'm just going to make it easy. And that's what I did. And I think I doubled it with the electric piano. Yeah, I did. Right? And then I just doubled that with Mobius blips, whatever that means. Gave this. Again, entirely based, what you'll notice, on the whole tone scale. Because it sounds sort of mysterious. And then I think I also doubled the theremin type sound with this other synth. Which doesn't actually vary in pitch nearly as much as I thought it would, but that doesn't really matter. It worked out fine. I thought about using some of these, I don't know if you can read that, but some of the shimmers and swells, which are essentially guitar effects. It sounds like pads, and it could, if I added that, it could also give a sort of theremin-esque sound. But it turned out fine the way it is.
Penny Price has been abducted.
And of course, at the very end, which I had this timed, but then the timing changed, and so they undid the timing that I did, but it actually turned out better, so I don't mind. Right, I had that effect, that sort of, this audio effect, if I isolate it. Right, I had that sort of audio effect, which is just a triangle hit. It's a triangle. Right, like, those metal triangles that the less than ideal band kids play. Right? I just took that and then reversed it and created this. which I've used a lot in different previous project. I lined that up with the cut at the end because I thought it would work. I thought it sounded cool. Which they actually changed in the edit, but actually made it better because they made it stop early and then the gunshot went off, which was actually better than this. So kudos to the editors. Part of me was just a little bit worried about using sax with the saxophone when I was asked to use the saxophone, because the thing about saxophone software, it's usually not great. It's by and large saxophone, what we call VSTs, saxophone instruments, software instruments like this, by and large don't sound very good. There's plenty that you can find. Something about the saxophone, it's very hard to capture in a way that sounds realistic. And there also aren't that many sort of normally priced saxophones. A lot of the saxophones that you find, they're either free or they're like $400. And I don't mean like a real saxophone. I mean the piece of software. So I'm like, okay, I'm not going to spend $400. And I just decided I'm just going to find the best free saxophone I can find and double it with a guitar, because guitar software often can sound very good. So I'm just going to double it with guitar, so hopefully it will come across as more realistic than it actually is. You can sort of, it helps fake it. It helps fake it a little bit more. So yeah, I mean, I could get really into this, but this video is going to be long enough, so yeah. So I hope you enjoyed that look into the score for Now Let Me Tell You Something. The video went on for longer than I anticipated. I hope you found it at least somewhat enjoyable, or at least moderately informative. I've linked all, or at least most of the software that I used in the description in case you want to have a look at it yourself, as well as the link to the film if you still for some reason haven't seen it. Thinking I might do these sorts of videos for other projects that I've done and that I will do. Let me know if you'd be up for that, and take care. See you later.